Landmines and jellyfish. Welcome back to Knives, I guess, and the safe word is cigarettes. So, we just did a live stream and we had a hell of a time on that one. The chat was super active. We had a lot of cool guys in there and a ton of fun. But we went in on the Boker Kalashnikov and I rolled the D20, and out of the four knives there, it picked this one out, and it's the one I wanted to do the most. I got lucky this week and didn't get the worst possible one in the mix. So, not mad about that. But, this right here, let's flick the button. Is a Kalashnikov 74, and this is the spear point, and it's got the dagger grind on it. So you got a hollow right here and a hollow right here, and Auss-8 steel. And the pocket clip is tip up, which is the Lord's carry. And we went on this for 4 hours of cutting. And I mean, we got in there enough that it started wearing the paint off of the edge on both sides. There's definitely significant wear on the paint, but it was interesting. So Auss-8, and especially the Auss-8 on the Kalashnikov, is not known for exceptional edge retention. You know, it's designed to be very tough and not brittle at the cost of some of the HRC. So I went into this kind of with reserved expectations. You know, my expectations were not quite 8 CR performance, but I figured it'd wear out after about the 2-hour mark. And we went out on it, and we cut a ton of cardboard. A ton. And I think it was at about the 2-hour mark, we started seeing the kind of wear we'd see at about 3 hours on 8CR13. And I thought at the 3-hour mark we'd have to strop it, but no. At 3 hours, we were still able to do a okay push cut on paper. And then at the 4-hour mark, it was still cutting, but it was really ragged and difficult. So at the 4-hour mark, we had significantly more wear than we've had on our 8CR13 blades. It did maybe a little better than the 440 from 1980 on that Buck 110. Significantly better than whatever they used on the Walmart Ozark Trail Axis lock knife. And like, it held up. You know, everybody was expecting it to deteriorate a lot faster than it did. It deteriorated about as fast as I expected, give or take. You know, I had pretty realistic expectations on it. But it pushed through the cuts, you know, so it did exactly what the Auss-8 is supposed to do. Now, the ergonomics on it, these are surprisingly good ergos. I was holding it like this and pushing through tons and tons of cuts, coming in kind of down, like all kinds of edges. And I will say the jimping. After a couple hours, the jimping started to hot spot, but that's to be expected. You know, the ergos aren't necessarily designed to do that kind of heavy cutting for that many hours. I mean, I did go 4 straight hours cutting this stuff up. And, you know, I'm going to say it right now. If you're going to design a knife, you're going to design the handle, and you're going to work on the ergos, either you or you need to have somebody go through and do some cut tests like that. Just really, really push it to see where the hot spots are and try to address them. You know, the ergos on this are designed quite well, and I mean, there's no problem with it. You know, when the hot spot showed up is very, very reasonable for the amount of abuse I was putting my hand and the knife through. Now what's interesting, I believe it was Knockoff Knives, starting on the stream, said he had the same knife and said it wasn't great for cutting cardboard. And the way this thing is set up, it trailed side to side through most of those cuts. And when the edge did start wearing, it really did kind of bunch up the cardboard and tear through about half of the cuts it took. Definitely not the best grind overall for Cardboard Slayer, but it worked. It did cut easily enough, and it cut better than a lot of the other knives we've done so far. It did the job. But yeah, it was kind of hard to control going through the cuts and keep it a nice, straight, clean cut. But even when the edge was worn, if I could get in here with the tip and get the cut lined up right, it was still a good cut. You know, at the end of 4 hours with the edge wear that it had on it, it still did good enough for me to be able to carry it and use it for the most part. You know, it wouldn't be that satisfaction of having a nice, sharp, clean edge. We ran it through the strop for 2 full cycles of stropping while I was talking, and we were explaining, you know, the difference between sharpening and stropping and what was important there and how things worked and all that. And it sharpened up to the point where it did start shaving again, which that kind of tells you, again, the HRC isn't necessarily as high as other stainless steels. I don't think Auss-8 is stainless, but I could be wrong. but it didn't hold up as well as 8CR. It certainly didn't like it didn't do nearly as good as the D2 on the Jin Captain folding knife. Like the Jin so far is the king for the best remaining edge after 4 hours so far. So that's probably going to hold its spot for a little while until something else comes up. But again, still very impressed by this thing. But after a couple of rounds of stropping and all that, let's see if I can cut this without borking it. Like I was having such a hard time with that at the end of the stream. Yeah, I am struggling to get a clean cut on this. Like I've been borking these cuts like nonstop. So like it's not necessarily the cleanest cut on the planet. I could definitely throw it at the sharpener and get a cleaner cut, but for stropping it back up after 4 hours of slaying cardboard, that's still not too shabby. It held on to enough edge that I was able to strop it back up to that and strop it back up to shaving a good bit. I am kind of running out of hair on the back of my hand to do this with, and I don't want to go up here because it's going to start looking really bad really quickly. But it's stropped up nicely. Like this thing has definitely had a lot of hype. I mean, if you've been, into knives and playing around with knives and stuff like that for very long, you've heard of the Kalashnikov, you've seen videos on it, the hype's there. It definitely lives up to the hype. And this one has definitely got a lot of paint chipped off because it saw a good bit of carry before. I just had so many knives coming in that I couldn't give any one thing pocket space for too long. But this was one I definitely reached for fairly often, and a lot of that's just because, boom, automatic knife, affordable automatic knife. Like they did a good thing here. I had one, I had a Benchmade automatic for a while. That thing broke, and at the time, automatic knives were still a couple $100. And I wasn't able to get another automatic until I saw these things and found out they exist and went ahead and got them. So, like, everything about this is skookum as frig. And I know there are guys that have been looking at them and kind of on the fence about it. If you're going to spend the money on something and you want a good budget auto, this is probably the best way to go right here. The next step up is finding an OTF, and the OTFs get real expensive real fast for the good ones. And, yeah, I ain't cheaping out on that. But this thing did all the things I needed to. It did them very well, and it survived Cardboard Slayer quite well. And I even spoiled you guys and got a pizza box to cut up because y'all keep asking. So, yeah, definitely worth your time if you don't have one and you're interested in getting one. If you're in a state where you can buy an automatic knife, by all means, have at it. Something was mentioned about a flipper tab version of this that's non-automatic, which, I mean, honestly, for me, it kind of defeats the point. If you live in an area where you can't have an automatic knife, but you still specifically want a Kalashnikov, I guess that's the solution, but, making one non-automatic kind of really defeats the entire purpose of having one of these to begin with. That could have just been a different knife model at that point. But, yeah, I just wanted to let y'all know how this did. The AUS-8, it performed as expected. The edge retention wasn't quite as good as the 8CR13, but it still held up quite well. Unless you're in an environment where you're really, really beating the hell out of your knives, you're going to be just fine with this thing for quite a while. And this thing is designed for really rough, nasty environments where a more brittle blade's not going to hold up that good, and I mean, the reputation's out there. Like, and I've said it before, one of the Blade HQ guys lost his underneath a piece of sod when he was doing his yard, and found it 2 years later and rinsed it out, and it was working just fine. That's the kind of thing that these Kalashnikovs are designed to stand up to. They're definitely, they're not safe queens. They're meant to be carried. They're meant to be beaten on. And in my opinion, this is one knife where the more beat up and battle scarred it is, the cooler it looks. It looks like it's done work. So, I mean, adding some wear on the paint, stuff like that, was actually, in my opinion, a good thing. It just gives it more personality and it makes it look better than new, which I might be weird about that, but that's just me. So I thought I'd share the results of Cardboard Slayer, let you know how the AUS-8 did, and, we'll move on to another steel on the next one, which may or may not be one we haven't done yet. Depends on what the 20-sided die decides to give me. But, yeah, all that being said, thanks for looking at my crap. Subscribers, you guys are awesome. Y'all are still coming in. We are getting closer and closer to 1,000 and that 1K giveaway. Like, I am waiting on that. I'm looking forward to doing it. I'm going to be so happy to see 1,000, and you guys are making it happen slowly but surely, so thank you. Comments, I love a little bit of feedback. Words are hard. If you got one, let me know what you think. If you don't have one, let me know, did this affect your decision in any way, or anything else you want to talk about. And all that being said, Y'all have a nice day.